and welcome everyone. We are back on Dharma podcast with Sandeep Balakrishna. The provocation, so to speak, of this conversation is the most recent vile utterance by none other than the President of the Indian National Congress, Shri Mallikarjun Kharge, where he saw the Home Minister Amit Shah taking a dip at the Maha Kumbh and made a nasty, ugly comment saying poverty will not be wiped out by taking a dip in Maha Kumbh. And the purpose of this conversation, therefore, is to discuss the mindset behind these vile utterances which happen at repeated frequency, what goes into the making of these, and what does it manifest itself into. So let's get started with Sandeep on this conversation. Sandeep, thanks for joining us. The purpose of having this conversation with you, like I mentioned, is to delve deeper into what is seen as a symptom of the recent vile utterance of Sri Mallikarjun Kharge on the occasion of the sacred Maha Kumbh. So, if you go back in time and analyze this regular diatribe that is spewed from all the leadership of Congress, how would you like to see this? With what lens?
Yeah, I think it's fairly clear. Initially I didn't want to have this conversation. I wanted to write a column or something, but what they call as gissipity, record, a broken record. So I let it go, but then it is also important in light of what Mr. Kharge has said, basically, and that's putting it very politely, and it's par for the course for all Congress leaders, like you said, because it's part of their DNA. You can't, kind of eradicate it. I'll come to that in a bit. The anti-Hindu DNA of the Congress is well documented. It has a prolonged history, and it begins, its godfather rather, its progenitor is a man named Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. We have done a longish series on the history of the untold history of the Congress party, where we have shown through primary evidences, through speeches, writings and activism of Mr. Gandhi, that while he was not openly anti-Hindu, he was not an anti-Hindu by any standard, but every action that he took, every move that he made, ultimately ended up in disaster only for the Hindu community. And his, fabulous large-scale nationwide appeasement of the peaceful community is well known. Congress ka DNA yahan hai. So how else will Mr. Kharge kind of, escape or go or violate his DNA? It's simply not possible. You cannot grow a mango fruit in a neem tree. So it's as simple as that. But and neither is this the first time that Mr. Kharge has used such abusive, hostile language regarding the Hindu community and all its rituals and practices and festivals and so on. He has openly said that, we are against this Sanatana. Just a few months ago, he said this in public platforms, nonetheless. So, because, see, ye inko khatakta hai. This kind of massive reawakening of the Hindu community that has happened over the last 10 years and which is still growing in strength. The Maha Kumbh, we spoke about that. Yes. We did a special episode on that. Even as we speak, look at the kind of numbers, the scale, and the flawless arrangements that have been made and the mammoth infrastructure that has been, put in place. So, ye sab khatakta hai. So, let's look at what Mr. Kharge has said. So, he says basically that by taking a dip in the Ganga, will poverty be eradicated? Do you get food by taking a dip? This is a classic template which was first seeded by Christian missionaries who mischaracterized, derisively spoke about all Hindu practices and bracketed them with a single word, superstition. Mr. Kharge's statement has its roots there. Do you get food by taking a dip? Will poverty be eradicated? This statement, I think it is one of the most vulgar forms of reductionism of a sacred Mangala Snan. We call it Mangal Snan, a sacred bath. Okay, sacred bath doesn't have the same profound connotation as a Mangal Snan. Yes, it might be a good translation, but It doesn't have the same cultural, philosophical, spiritual connotation. So this Mangal Snan is an outward expression rooted in high philosophy and deep spirituality. We need to ask Mr. Kharge a counter question. Why does everything have to be linked to poverty and food? You see, there is a beautiful Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad. Its the first level to realizing the high philosophy is Anna or food. Annam brahme tevyajanat annadyeva khal vimani bhuta nijayante anne najata nijivanti annam prayantyavi samvishanti ti tadvijignasasva. So this is what the Rishi tells his son or his disciple, that if you want to realize the philosophical truth, the highest philosophical truth, go and meditate. He is not spoon feeding his disciple. He says go and meditate, contemplate on it. So the disciple goes, he sits in meditation, then he has a vision, he has a realization. He says, the shloka that I quoted, this is the disciples. He says, yes, I got a great vision. He says that the highest philosophy is anna or food, because it is only food that controls the whole world, that makes the world move. So the Guru says, very good, this is a good realization. Now go back and meditate again. And he goes and he comes back with another vision. He says, okay, Anna is fine, but there is a level higher than Anna, which is prana or breath or life. As long as you're breathing, you have a name, I have a name. Once I'm dead, I become a corpse. I become just a body. So once I'm dead, nobody will say, take Sandeep and, do the last rites. They say, take the body. Yes?
Yes.
So this is a second level. And then he goes again. Guru says, okay, this is also good. Go and meditate again. So this time he comes back with another vision. He says, manaha or mind.
Mind.
So he says, very good. Go back again and meditate. So he goes back again, comes up with another realization. He says, okay, there's something higher than mind, which is known as buddhi or intellect. And he says, wonderful, go back again and meditate. And then he goes again, meditates, and then finally, when he returns, he is a realized soul. He says, Ananda, unqualified, repeatable, perpetual joy, free of all external bondages. So he says, good, now we have learned his philosophy. So all these come together. This is the profundity of our culture, of our philosophical heritage. And this man, just for scoring some cheap political points, he reduces everything to the gross level of food.
So you're saying
all these expressions, Mangal Snan, pilgrimage, Tirtha, everything, they are the outward expressions to realize this fivefold. This is called Panchakosha Vidya. To realize this fivefold, pursuit of philosophical realization. So this man reduces everything to just food.
So you mentioned that this is a copy-paste of the Christian missionary template.
Absolutely.
So poverty has been used as a stick, especially to question beliefs and mock them of the Sanatana. Okay.
Absolutely. So that is the thing. And why does Mr. Kharge forget the fact that the awesome masses, the teeming masses who perform the Mangala Snana in Kumbh Mela, in various other Tirtha Kshetras, Kashi, other places, all these masses are mostly poor. Majority of them are poor. What drives them? What makes them undergo such hardship? What makes them save and set aside money for years just so that they can go on this pilgrimage and wait for years just to undertake this journey? We've seen those visuals.
Yes, yes. Absolutely.
Right? I mean, these are the people who have kept Sanatana Dharma alive. In spite of centuries of oppression, all kinds of alien invasions, attacks by same missionaries, other people, communists, Congress party, by people like Kharge. In spite of that, these are the people who have kept our culture alive. All right. The whole Hindu community, it has any sense of gratitude left, should touch the feet of all these people.
Well said.
That devotion, our mind has been corrupted by a lot of influences. Their minds haven't been.
And they rise above their so-called poverty.
Absolutely.
To do this.
Poverty is not at all a thing with them. So, on the contrary, cheap, political gimmicks like this kind of statement. On the contrary, they play on this poverty. So the result is that for the sake of what? For being in power, what does it give you in the end?
Which also they aren't getting.
So they play on this kind of thing by telling them that, look, you're poor. By taking by doing Mangala Snan in all these places, your poverty won't be eradicated. So you cut their cultural, their spiritual roots off. And Mr. Kharge is the last person to speak about poverty and the lack of food. He should tell people, as an elected people's representative, he should at least tell the people of his own constituency as to why his own backyard, Gulbarga, why it remains so backward even after a record of 8 terms as MLA, MP. He served as minister in several portfolios for decades. Why isn't he accountable? Why doesn't he, show that?
The concern for poverty is absent there.
Right. So, and then let's also not forget the astounding amount of fortune that he has amassed. On the salary, on what salary? On an MLA salary? On an MP salary? Let's also not forget the fact that his most recent controversy was where he was accused of illegally appropriating 5 acres of government land, KIADB, Karnataka Industrial Area Board or something.
Yeah, it's been in the news.
Yeah, right. 5 acres of that government land he is appropriated to his family trust using his political clout. So, Parag, it's quite rich when you hear him talk about the difficulties of poverty. He can't do otherwise because, like I said, this anti-Hindu DNA is there. While he is kind of apologized, in an effort to do damage control, it's too little too late. You don't need to apologize something which you can already prevent. As simple as that.
Correct.
All right. This kind of sorry has no value. Sorry in retrospect. Apology in hindsight has no value. He belongs to a party which openly supports, the worst kind of Islamist forces. This is public knowledge.
Yes.
And it's, well-documented history. Double tragedy in Mr. Kharge's case is that his own family, his ancestors, they suffered extraordinary brutalities under the Nizam of Hyderabad and his, goon squad, his jihadi squad, Razakars. So how can you be in a party like this, man?
And completely divorced from the suffering of his own ancestors.
Exactly. How can you be like this? That beats me actually. And but what it fundamentally shows is that once you are infected by the Nehru dynasty, the anti-Hindu virus, you become an incurable patient who hates his own roots. Here is a very simple, very basic question, Parag. How many of even veteran Congress leaders today know the full history of their own party? There is a fundamental point in all this. I don't mean to be unnecessarily harsh on Mr. Kharge, but you see how all these things come together.
Yeah, but he invited it, right?
He invited it, absolutely. So what is his problem if Mr. Amit Shah, forget him being a Home Minister, even if he was not a Home Minister,
as a regular Hindu citizen,
ordinary Indian, what is Mr. Kharge's problem if he follows the sacred practices or the sacred rituals of the Dharma he was born in? What is Mr. Kharge's problem? Really? Why do you want to brand an entire community, an entire religion, an entire Dharma? You won't get food. Poverty won't be eradicated if you take a holy dip. Then don't take a bath, boss. That also won't eradicate poverty. It might not be holy, but you take a shower every day, no? Will that eradicate poverty?
Yeah.
Let us go back to, the genesis of this anti-Hindu DNA of the Congress, which accelerated after Nawab Nehru became the whole and soul of Congress party, after he monopolized both the party and the government. Let me read out a quote from Nawab Nehru. Much is said about the superiority of our religion, art, music and philosophy. But what are they? Your religion has become a thing of the kitchen as to what you can eat and what you cannot eat, as to whom you can touch and whom you cannot touch. The real danger to India is Hindu right-wing communalism. This is what Mr. Nawab Nehru said in a convocation address in some university in Bombay. if I'm not mistaken. This is as far back as 1954-55, that period.
And again, to borrow your word, reductionist, reducing it to a kitchen religion.
Completely. This was an understanding of our first Prime Minister about his own cultural roots. How else will the future trajectory be? It will lead to this only. No, it will only lead to the emergence of people like Mr. Kharge. And in this excerpt that I just read out, quote, notice the emphasis of Nehru on the word your.
I know, I when you were pointing your, it was a little jarring.
Right. He's using the second person, which means that he
has nothing to do
clearly doesn't consider himself as a Hindu at all. In fact, he abhorred everything about his own culture. No wonder that Nawab Nehru casually slapped Hindus outside, Sadhus, outside his home. His sister also slapped Sadhus.
You covered that in one.
We covered that in a previous episode. No wonder he deliberately threw out Sanskrit studies from our university. No wonder he enacted unfair laws to destroy traditional Hindu institutions. No wonder he tampered with the Hindu family system, the infamous Hindu Marriage Act, Hindu Code Bill. And no wonder that he hated the reconstruction of the Somnath temple, and he personally wrote letters in his capacity as PM to his entire cabinet, even to the President of India, not to attend the Punarutthana, the Prana Pratishtha of Somnath temple. This list is endless. All right, we'll do a dedicated episode to this sometime.
And again, Kharge continued the tradition by boycotting the Prana Pratishtha at Ram Mandir.
Same thing, right? The same DNA, no? Indira Gandhi, she ordered firing on innocent sadhus who had come with petitions to ban cow slaughter, kill them in cold blood using the might of the state. Why? Because she was a supreme leader, Prime Minister. This anti-Hindu DNA is there. And I've done a separate small episode on how she forcibly tried to enter the famous Jagannath temple in Puri Kshetra. So this is par for the course. Mr. Nehru, back then, he had ranted against an alleged Hindu right-wing communalism. By the way, this word doesn't exist in any dictionary. It is an artificially coined spurious term. It has no meaning. There is no such thing as Hindu right-wing. There is communalism, but we'll get to that later in a different episode. All right. Back then, Nehru ranted against this so-called Hindu right-wing communalism. Now, his great-grandson, Nehru's great-grandson, has substituted Hindu right-wing communalism with BJP and RSS. Same template, boss.
Favorite punching bag.
Same template. So even after 75 years, he's using the same template. And he wonders why the Congress keeps on losing elections. In the Delhi election, Congress is not even a factor.
It's not even a player. Yes.
It is not even a player. And then there are some murmurs that, the India Alliance is all set to boot out Congress from its Khichdi coalition. Another point. Just 2 days back, where was this great leader of opposition? What was he doing on Republic Day instead of being present in the parade? Where was he? What was he doing? Rahul Gandhi is following the same Ghisa Pita template that went out of circulation long back. And he still wonders why the Congress keeps losing elections, and he keeps ranting against the whole world, election commission, what is that? EVM, malfunction, all kinds of things. It keeps blaming everybody. That is par for the course of a loser. He outdid himself recently, about a month back, when he basically said, and I quote him, the BJP and the RSS have captured every single institution, and we are now fighting the BJP, the RSS, and the Indian state itself. Dude, what, you must be smoking some potent stuff, except that I don't know if he does that, if he has those habits. This guy is the leader of opposition in our democracy, boss. If this is what he's speaking when he's out of power, it's left to one's imagination what he will speak, what he will do. God forbid if his party is elected to power. And it's a very scary proposition, Parag.
Absolutely.
Which actually reminds me of the late great Atal Bihari Vajpayee's brilliant one-line assessment of the true character of the Congress party. He said that the Congress in power might be dangerous, but a Congress out of power is fatal to the nation.
And he said it so way back then.
He said it way back when, in the early 90s or mid 90s. Where does this kind of statement by Mr. Rahul Gandhi come from? What are its roots? Its roots go deep in the communist discourse, early communist discourse, and it is a template set by these communists who regard the Indian state and nation as an illegitimate entity. And in fact, the communists in 1947, when India got independence, they called the independence of India as a betrayal of their revolution. This is a mindset, dude. This is a mindset. This is what informs Mr. Rahul Gandhi's, various speeches and rants and, things like that. All this once again boils down to a fundamental point, which once again goes back to 1947. Since independence, the Congress party's record clearly shows that it has paid scant heed to safeguarding India's sovereignty and integrity. Pains me to say this, and I'm not the first one to say it. Barely 2 years after India's independence, there was a widespread feeling in the country that the British had done a better job of keeping India united than the Congress.
Absolutely.
It is a brutal, savage assessment, but it is true.
Sadly true.
Sadly true. Here is what an eminent gentleman, his name is forgotten now, D.P. Mishra. D.P. Mishra was none other than the late Brajesh Mishra's father. This is what he wrote in one place, and I quote him. This is what actually happened in India as the British started leaving. The gift of unity departed with the advent of independence. The gift of unity departed with the advent of independence. In a few days, security of life and property also disappeared in a large part of the subcontinent. The unprecedented butchery in the northwest demonstrated that the transfer of power has been wrongly characterized as peaceful. Look at the amount of historical truths that this one party has buried. Nobody in the Congress has even heard of this man's name. So what does this lead to? This lax attitude of the Congress party in safeguarding something as fundamental, as inevitable as the unity of India, its geographical, its physical, political integrity. Congress has been lax throughout its rule. You check out the origins of almost every separatist force in the last 60-65 years, and in every case you invariably see the dark hand of the Congress out there. It has either birthed these separatist forces or allowed them to grow or surrendered to them.
Yeah, I think this
all so that this party has done all of this so that just one family could rule India till perpetuity. Why, for example, does this great man, Prime Minister in waiting, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, why does he feel compelled in the last 2 Lok Sabha elections to stand in Wayanad, which is one of the hotbeds of Islamism, radical Islamism? Why does he feel compelled to stand from there? Tell me. So what does
it is given sanctity?
What does this point to? Now, I'll give you 2 more examples. Example number 1 is very interesting, okay? We all know what Indira Gandhi did and even Sanjay Gandhi did during the emergency, all the atrocities, excesses, violence. She had converted the whole Indian state into a police state, basically. That's what she had done. We know all that. And she paid for it. She was completely, thoroughly routed in the subsequent elections. Now, what happened after that, what she did after that is very, very, very interesting. It is very telling. It is very revealing. So, her passport, by the way, was impounded by the Janata government. After much fighting, she finally, got back her passport and she was allowed to travel out of India, which was the first country that she went to.
UK, I think, right?
UK.
Yes.
And in UK, she pulled all her connections out there. The whole political establishment of England, cutting across ruling party and opposition, they united as one and gave her nationwide platforms to rehabilitate her image. Some of the prominent names included trashy romance novelist named Barbara Cartland, Mountbatten, and the then Prime Minister and the leader of opposition, I forget their names, all of them gave her a red carpet welcome, gave her a whirlwind tour throughout United Kingdom so that, she could somehow clean up her tarnished image thanks to the emergency.
And that she chose to go to a country against which we fought the freedom struggle.
Exactly. Her own dad, no.
Her own dad, exactly.
He was touted as this great champion of, freedom fighter and all those nice things. Anti-colonialist guy. So UK rehabilitated, it cleaned up her image. And then she came back to India. So you see where all the, in the immediate next elections, 1980, she won. I'm not saying there's a direct link.
Yeah,
but you see how these political games are played on the global stage. So, which brings me back to the same thing. How on earth can she be called, in the philosophical level, at the most basic ethical level, how on earth can she be called the leader of an independent, sovereign, united republic called India, if she's doing this? And she had packed her entire PMO with Indian agents of Moscow, Communist Russia.
Enough has been documented
PN
about that
Huxer
too,
and
right?
all those guys,
yeah.
right? All card-carrying commies. Where all these connections lead to. So you're not serious about your own, the safety of your own country, as basic as that. Example 2 is one of the most recent and one of the most prominent examples. If Srimati Indira Gandhi had not fattened a fanatic called Brindanwale, we would not be stuck with the Khalistani headache, which has grown into a monster now. It took P.V. Narasimha Rao. Even Rajiv Gandhi could not control Sikh terrorism back then. It took a non-Nehru Prime Minister to crush terrorism in Punjab using the force of police, not even military.
So, when you mention that the hand of Congress is visible in every separatist
movement.
So I'm saying, in spite of them paying a heavy price with the unfortunate assassination of Indira Gandhi, the very snake that she read, which is this gentleman that you spoke about, actually was the cause of her downfall. Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, but that also hasn't compelled them to change course.
No, it won't. No, that is a problem.
No, in spite of the price they paid.
This Nehru dynasty, it regards India as its fiefdom, man. That is the point. Now, which reminds me of this thing. The political culture within the Congress party. Mr. Hemanta Biswasa Sharma's memorable interview about, feeding dog biscuits, how the entitled dynast behavior of Mr. Rahul Gandhi. This is the culture, the basic culture of the Congress party. You see those, many of those AICC and other meetings, party meetings, you see them. Look at those visuals. Mr. Kharge, he has crossed 80 years of age and he has to get up with great difficulty to make way for a guy who is old enough to be his son, Rahul Gandhi.
In deference to him.
In deference to him. This violates every known social decorum, cultural etiquette of the Hindu society, where it didn't matter. I mean, you have hundreds of examples where kings, coronated kings, absolute rulers, there was, in a monarchy, we have not lived under a monarchy, it's difficult to, recreate that in that era in our mind. But in a monarchy, the king had the absolute veto over and above everything. So nothing prevented a king from becoming an absolute despot or a tyrant. But he didn't. There are hundreds of examples, lived examples, which show that each time a learned man, a scholar, a poet, a guru, a spiritual head, each time such people came to the court, he would stand up. The age didn't matter.
And neither did the position.
Neither did his position. And this is a violation of every known cultural etiquette. 80 plus year old man, Mr. Kharge, he has to stand up for this guy.
Whose accomplishments are nothing.
With the zero accomplishments, absolutely. So this kind of culture, when it has been made into a political habit for decades, social corruption also happens. It infects everything, all areas of human life, of our national life, which is exactly what has happened. So, given these examples of all these separatist, encouraging all these separatist forces, Assam, for example, Prafulla Kumar Mohanty, if I'm not mistaken. So his activism, when it reached the peak and firing That was the standard answer of Indira Gandhi. If you can't quell them through dirty tricks, shoot them dead. Use the might of the state. So when this guy took a delegation to Delhi, Mohanty, he made him wait for 15 days, weeks together. You outweigh them, frustrate them. Don't even give an audience, no. What will they do? First you call them for the meeting and say, okay, beta, we'll sit across the negotiating table. But when you get out of the safety of Assam, your immediate surroundings, and go to a place called Delhi, the climate, the atmosphere, everything is different. And you outweigh them, frustrate them, they'll go back and they will take up arms. And then the same lady who was responsible for this, the same leader who was responsible for driving such leaders to frustration, not listening to even their legitimate demands, their legitimate requests. She saw every opposition to her, even disagreement with her, as a potential threat, as an enemy to be quelled. So you do this for what? 55 years? You see all this. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg that I'm mentioning, everything, impromptu, whatever I could recall on the spur of the moment. In light of all this, you realize the enormity of the victory of 2014 and the pivotal, not just enormity, it was a pivotal historic moment. So, yeah, whatever. So, given all this, just to summarize the whole narrative, is it any surprise that both UPA 1 and UPA 2, that alleged government was actually being run by a cabal of globalist NGOs who wanted to break India from within by infiltrating the highest levers of power. The amount of damage that happened in that one decade, I keep mentioning this on all platforms. It's a miracle we survived that. In the end, is it any surprise that Mr. Rahul Gandhi has allied with all kinds of regime changers like George Soros? Is it any surprise why he keeps repeatedly bad-mouthing India's elected government on foreign soil? Circle completes. His grandmother went on foreign soil, rehabilitated her political career. Nawab Nehru was a big Bhakt of Soviet Russia, of Maoist China. Each time, India and the Indian people have paid the price.
So let's thank Sandeep for this enlightening conversation, tracing back right to the 1947 and upwards time period. We shall continue such conversations with Sandeep in the subsequent episodes. Thank you all for joining Dharma Podcast. Please like, share and subscribe so that the content reaches a wider audience. And we thank you again for your support for watching Dharma Podcast.